As a collections manager, every day is very different. For instance, this morning I worked on digitisation, so taking photos of objects, cataloguing them and sharing them on our Victorian Collections database. I then finished my day with developing what's known as an outward loan agreement for another museum who wishes to borrow a couple of objects from our collection to put on display as part of their upcoming exhibition.
A regular day in the office for me looks like project administration, budgets, spreadsheets, all kinds of fun work like that, and it's really exciting getting to push some major projects forward.
What does a typical day look like? For a tour guide, there is no typical day. It varies quite a bit depending on the number of people, their age group, their mobility, the weather. Yes, it changes every day.
I'm a researcher for the museum, so when people want to know more about their family history or want to know details about the township, they can come and ask me and I'll go try and find out for them.
The globe. I could just imagine people looking at that globe and being so isolated here from the rest of the world, the rest of the Western world, and just looking at it in amazement and learning so much from it.
The wheelbarrow and the whole wheelbarrow story and collection.
The Tasmanian tiger.
The object in our museum that sparks joy for me is a restored Chinese banner from the 1870s. It's a wonderful thing and features genuine Beechworth.
What I really love about my job is working with people.
The thing that I love about working at the Beechworth Historic Precinct and the Burke Museum is that I get to connect with people and share stories, including my own story of my family settling in the northeast, in Kigunya and up at the High Plains.
I love combining preservation and communication of history in my job. Not only do we get to preserve and collect and protect collections and buildings, we also get to communicate what these mean to people, and that's one of the really exciting things about working in this sector.
It is a creative role that involves a lot of planning and a lot of working with community and really bringing out stories from people, which I always love.
I love the amazement on people's faces when I explain the history of Beechworth, how it went from zero population, a European population, to a crazy town of thousands and thousands of people. And just people sharing that knowledge, and people just go away, I think, much enriched on our history, our collective history.
The fact that it is the oldest regional museum in Australia.
One surprising fact about the Burke Museum is that it has wonderful acoustics.
A surprising fact about the historic precinct is just how original it is and how good the state of preservation is.
But three museums that are quite different to each other and that I've had the privilege to experience would be the War Remnants Museum in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, the Vasa Museum in Stockholm in Sweden, and the National Cowgirl Museum in Fort Worth, Texas.
Probably the Batavia Museums in Fremantle and Geraldton, Western Australia, the Amber Fort in Jaipur in India, and Duxford Air Museum in the UK.
One of my favourite museums that I've ever been to is the Titanic Experience in Belfast.
Of course, my favourite museum is the Burke Museum, but other favourites of mine include the Museum of Tasmania in Hobart, the British Museum in London, and the Uffizi Gallery in Florence.
One of my favourite characters from Beechworth was a gentleman called Alexander Glennie Jex, who opened the Hirsutic and Tonsorial Temple in Beechworth in 1857 and went by the stage name of Professor Dejar.
For me, it has to be Dame Jean McNamara. She was a pioneer in science. She was a humanitarian. I think she was an amazing person.
Jobs in museums are great, and I highly recommend it as a career. You'll need to study an undergraduate degree, probably in history, and then go on to some postgraduate study. I did museum studies at Deakin University. You should also start volunteering at a local museum to get yourself some experience.